like a crisp 70. Like night, well, 70. It's like 69. It's nice though outside of New York for once. It's been miserable for a
Oh,
while.
69. That's
Yeah,
that's like, ooh, that feels like not too
it's
bad,
nice.
It's
maybe
like a
like
light jacket and
yeah,
jeans.
light jacket, yes. Exactly. It's so nice. Oh my goodness. Let's see. We have Jacqueline here. I know you guys met Savannah last time, but this is
Hmm.
Jacqueline, by the way, our ICC liaison. So she works with you guys know the ICC for club stuff. They're kind of like the the how do you explain it? Leadership for and like rule setters for clubs and everything. So she works with them, goes to their meetings. And then I don't know if Savannah is in here yet. Is it okay if we give it 3 more minutes? Is that okay, guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Perfect.
not in a rush.
Awesome.
I don't think Joven and Isaac are either. I
Nope.
mean, I don't want to
Perfect.
speak for them, but
Perfect. Let's see. Mm,
hope everyone else is doing good. A lot of people
Right.
here.
Right? Good turnout. Thank you so much, by the way, for the posters. Those were great. This looked
Yeah, of
awesome.
course. I don't know if you guys like meet in person as well or if it's all virtual, but
It can be
I,
difficult to, yeah, to meet in person just because room reservations. Zoom's always,
oh
the
yeah,
easiest.
yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, okay, well, I guess you'll have to keep all the stickers then.
Right. Let's see. I can hand them out too. Here
Oh,
you
that's
go,
fine.
guys. Right. Mm, okay. Okay, I think we can start now, guys. If that works with you.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okie dokie. Tons of people here. Love it.
Yeah.
And okay. So for like the questions, like anyone can answer. There's no pressure, so feel free.
Mhm.
And depending on if we have like the time, would you guys be open for like student questions if anyone has some questions to ask?
Yeah, of course. We have like a whole presentation just kind of going over each of our backgrounds and about the studio, and we'll do that. And if they have questions about anything, we can totally answer them.
That is awesome. Yay. Yeah. So beginning, could you just introduce yourselves, just telling us, your name, position, some of your background, whether you were at SCAD or not, what you studied, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, did you want us to just do that first before our like
Sure. The
formal
yeah,
introduction?
presentation.
Okay.
Yes, that would be great. Are you guys able to share your screen? Let's see.
Isaac will be the one sharing the screen, so it's up
Okay.
to him.
Better
Yes,
behind
there
the
we
desk
go.
today.
Yeah, I just sent a request to share screen. I don't know if I need permission to do
Yes.
that.
I believe, yes. Just click yes. Let me know if it goes through.
Let's
Fortunately, not
see.
the Zoom master.
Yeah,
Zoom can be can be a lot sometimes. Let's see.
go
Awesome.
and present. Ooh, all right.
Perfect.
Go. Yeah, so Twisty Tiger. Woo. This first part is just a couple quick introductions.
Mhm.
Um, But yes, hello. I'm Isaac McMichael. I'm a production coordinator at Twisty Tiger, a based in New Orleans, Louisiana. I focus on hybrid and 2D animation. And currently I'm working at Swaybox Studios as a production assistant on their upcoming feature film. It's a really cool film working with DC and James Gunn on this hybrid animation film. I don't know how much I can say, but doing some really cool things, working in their art working with the concept artist and orthographic teams, just overseeing anything in the 2D realm, from concept art to color keys to orthographics. Anything that's 2D is what I oversee over at their team. But I started in production management. This was my very first film as a production assistant, was Submersed, working with Olive and Joven. Before joining this, I had no clue what being a producer was or what assistant was. I just joined completely blind. And then Olivia and Hector just helped guide me and like teach me everything about production, everything about animation. And it's really where I fell in love with the behind the scenes logistics of just running the full operation of an animation team. Um, so from there, that led to my school doesn't have an animation program. I went to a small school in Central Virginia, but they had a cinematics program. So I took what I learned from Submersed and applied it to live action media, where legit for a whole semester we just made movies, just messing around with equipment, with camera gear, lighting, how to work with actors, work on stage, just anything live action, and just learning the whole production side behind coordinating a live set. So it's really cool just like learning a new medium of production management. So that led to some cool opportunities I got to work in up in Chicago. Worked on a few videos with Cabinet of Wonder, worked at Lollapalooza and Live Nation Entertainment doing an activation, which is just a whole nother production experience of working in a live environment. We are constructing this experience for the people live. Like there's no fixing in post. It's happening right there, which is a whole new production experience. And the LOH Studios is a small animation team where we just took a concept and ran it through development and pre-production. We were all college students and we're trying to figure out how animation works. So we put together a small production. Yeah, just collaborating with a bunch of really cool people, make something cool. And that eventually led to me working on my own student film my senior year. I wanted to put to test everything I'd learned about animation and production management and consolidate it into just one final sort of program for myself. So that's what SADAD became. Um, yeah, just bringing together a team. I brought together people from Pixar, Roblox, SCAD, SVA, and just like built up this team and built this beautiful production, which I honestly think is what producing is all about, is just about bringing the right people together and giving them the right resources to create something cool. So yeah, it was a process just being able to guide the team all the way from concept all the way to scoring and post-production. Um, and since then, I've been able to work on a few other really cool animated projects as a coordinator. Again, just working with some really cool artists, bringing together cool productions. Um, and then most recently, back in November, when Twisty Tiger was sort of reformed, which Olive will talk about later, I hopped back onto the team as a production coordinator for the motion media department. Just again, working through this new medium, motion media, very different from animation, lots of similarities, but just navigating this new program and learning how to work with clientele. Uh, yeah, just a whole new world of animation. And then that led to me currently at Swaybox Studios. So a long journey of lots of independent projects slowly building up into where I am at today. But yeah, pass it on to Joven.
So yeah, me and Isaac sort of like have similar trajectories, but my name's Javan or Jojo. I graduated from SCAD in 2023, so I'm actually the same year as Olive. I directed, you'll next slide. Probably. So in my senior year, you guys are probably familiar. I'm not sure how much people here are seniors. I did my own capstone and I directed it. It was a thesis of a 2D 3D animated film. Next slide. Isaac. And that's sort of like, you don't need to play the sound for that, it's kind of bad. But that's sort of like where my introduction to production coordination sort of started. As you guys are probably going to learn very soon. On the thesis projects, on our capstones, since your team can be very limited, you end up wearing a bunch of hats. So even though I studied visual development for animation, and I was directing, I ended up being the producer for the film as we moved into production and post-production because my other producer was also our 2D animation lead, so we didn't really have the resources to stretch her as thin as she needed to be. So I sort of took on that role of organizing everything and sort of like with a 2D 3D film, there's a lot of back and forth depending upon how you set up your film. So Bushido had a very interesting pipeline where one of our characters was fully 2D and one of our characters was 3D and 2D, and our backgrounds were a mix of 3D and 2D. So there always came a lot of like issues of dependables in post-production and production. So that's sort of like where I dipped my toes into production. And then next slide, that's sort of like where I started to like do my like freelance career in production. And ever since then, I've been on a bunch of different freelance projects. Some never came to fruition, but the one I'm most recently involved in, I've done production on a video game. I'm a production coordinator for Under the Skin, Two Side Studios, and that is a point and click adventure horror game. Next slide, Isaac, please. I don't want to like do the whole trailer, but essentially this is just what we've been working on. We have an alpha build coming out for that soon, hopefully. We're just waiting for coding to be finished. Um, and that's just like where I just wanted to show this to be representative of my freelance career. Even though I studied animation, I've been involved with a bunch of different projects, and this sort of like involvement in different like entertainment pipelines and how everything like functions. And there's still similarities and everything sort of led to me eventually landing a job as a production assistant. Next slide. At Jupiter Entertainment, and that's when I started doing more production as on live action. I worked on their TV show for seasons 15, 16, and 17 as a production assistant and eventually an associate producer. I actually met Jupiter Entertainment through SCAD, so I think they're an amazing opportunity to always reach out to SCAD. I was still freelancing in Savannah, and I got to meet the head of the studio, and that's when they hired me. And I worked for them for about 2.5 years. Next slide. And that leads me to sort of where I am now. I'm currently based in New York and I'm working as a production coordinator. It's funny, Isaac mentioned this. I work on activations. So I work now in the live event space. If you want to click the sizzle reel for that, that's what my studio serve does now. I've been working for them for about a month, so still fairly fresh, but I'm learning a lot of different things on how the different industries sort of vary. But in production, there's a lot of crossover, especially from animation to live action and now to the event space. Yeah. But next slide. I think that's everything I have.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Olive. I am the head of upcoming projects here at Twisty Tiger. I'm sort of the odd one out because I am not actually from a production assistant or coordinator background. I'm actually in storyboarding and marketing. It's kind of been a wild journey. Next slide, please. So I actually graduated SCAD back in 2023 with Joven. I did briefly work on his film, like one or two shots, I think just one shot. But I was actually
What
working
matters?
as yeah, I think it was like two, like one slide or one shot. So we knew each other from senior year. We kind of got to know each other more on Submersed. However, my senior film was actually Primogeniture, where I was the layout lead. Aside from that, I've been working on a couple short films during SCAD and after SCAD. However, most of my career actually has been in, next slide, please. Working more as a story artist and a like asset designer for all of these companies. I've worked a lot in well, with big companies, a lot of them has been more in social justice, in legal and finance, kind of going over towards the marketing department. I did start out mostly in storyboarding, and through my 3 years of freelancing, I've sort of picked up different traits, different skills, different programs I had to learn. Eventually, I'm more of just a generalist, social media, doing everything in marketing from the storyboarding side, from the asset development side, and now working a lot in the social media here at Twisty Tiger. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about what I actually did previously. I did a lot of design for Zoom, for Gatorade, and like I mentioned, a lot of the local sort of social justice and activism companies. I did graphic design. Oh, you can go back. Yeah, I did a lot of the graphic design. I did presentations. I worked for about 4 months with Zoom, then moved on to Gatorade, and then moved on to FEMA. And eventually I sort of worked more with a lot of local companies. During this whole time, I worked under the banner, just Twisty Tiger. It was just me until we merged with Anachronaut Productions, which was working on Submersed at the time. And that created this one big company that we call Twisty Tiger Productions today. So, next slide. So Twisty Tiger, as Isaac has sort of mentioned, is a combination between 2D motion media and 2D animation in the rig and frame-by-frame department. We relaunched back in January, and we have been working on our flagship animation, which is Submersed. Submersed has started back in like 2023, and we have been working on finishing that up in hopefully releasing in May. That's our goal right now. That's what we're aiming for. And I'm really excited to show it off later off in this presentation. Oh, next slide, please. Currently, our goal right now is to work on bringing on a lot of junior animators, people in pre-production, everyone that's either junior, entry level, or recently graduated. That has been a bulk of the people working at our studio. Who has been most of the people working on Submersed, on other projects that we have, as well as upcoming projects that we have in the advertising department. All of our leads are really awesome. We'll kind of go over them in a little bit, but our whole goal is to take people who are super interested in learning about the whole animation side of things, learning about how productions work, how to work as like a team and oversee a team on actual industry level projects. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Our team is really awesome. We have a collection of people both from SCAD and from all over the place. Since we're fully remote, we really take advantage of who we can like bring on and guide us. The studio was founded by me and Hector Troncoso, who was also a SCAD grad. He worked on the last dungeon from the SCAD animation studios back in 23. But right now he's currently working at Shattered Glass Films as a concept artist. Excuse me. Then there's me. I'm also one of the co-founders of Twisty Tiger, Isaac and Joven. And next slide, please. Then our awesome leads, Thomas was also a SCAD grad. He graduated in 23 as well. And Ansong, Gavin, and Manu are all international, but they do know a lot of SCAD students as well. They've worked with a lot of SCAD students and they're really awesome people on the team. Lastly, next slide, please, is the rest of our leadership department. Emily graduated back in 23. She is also a SCAD grad. So we have a lot of leads on our team who are all from the SCAD ecosphere. I'd say a lot of our team is also from SCAD as well. Like not everyone, but like we do know that, I don't know, like 20 people probably are on our team that were graduated from SCAD. So we try to keep networking with people currently at SCAD or recently graduated. Next slide, please. In terms of our previous work, yes, we have been working on Submerse, but we've also been working on a lot of previous projects as well. Isaac, next slide, please. We have two different divisions. We have our frame by frame and 2D rigging department, which has been working on or worked previously on a 3-minute short film with a international charity organization called the IHH. That was a project that Isaac helped kind of do production coordination on. I helped oversee that as well, and that was something that we worked on last year. We also have been working a lot with on our advertising side, which has been more in local businesses in like the Midwest sort of region. In terms of our upcoming work, next slide, please. Our flagship, as I mentioned, is Submersed. That we are hoping to release in May, which is in 1 month from now. We can't show a lot off right now just because we're like in the final stretch. There is going to be like a public release at like festivals and whatnot, but we do have some uh, sneak peek of the opening shot, at least, of Submersed and a couple other shots. I hope it's not too laggy. Yeah, so Submersed is like a 2D, 3D hybrid animation. It is 9.5 minutes long, so it's a very long short film. And we have had a team of over 100 people working on this, from production assistants, production coordinators, leads, 2D effects, 3D compositors, just everybody. The team has really grown since we started the film back in 23, and I'm really proud of how everyone has helped and chipped in. I'm really proud of our production assistants who have come on back in 23 and stuck through it until 26 now, kind of seeing every stage of the project that it's been through. So, in terms of our upcoming stuff, we have a lot going on, and we are rapidly expanding our growing slate of projects. As mentioned, we do have Submerse, but we are working with a couple other studios, some of which have been founded by SCAD grads, and some of them who were connections we've made through like previous events. So I know Mega Monkey and Studio Homestead were both founded by previous SCAD grads. Um, and we are working with them on some projects. Fables is our next biggest project that we announced back in January that we'll be working on like 2 episodes with them. Everything else is more in-house. We do a lot of overflow as well, so we're rapidly growing, as mentioned. Next slide, please. And as our team starts to grow, we are attending a couple upcoming events as well. A lot of them are in the Chicago area because that's where I'm closest to. However, we are also going to Canada. So this is where we'll be. You can come talk to probably me. I'll be at these events. I'm not sure if Joven and Isaac will be there, but I'm there.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We'll see. All right. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's everything I had to say about our studio, but I'm more than happy. Well, all three of us are more than happy to answer any questions about our studio, about their career paths, or anything that comes to mind.
That was awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for putting that together. Beautiful slides. Loved it.
Thank you.
Before I kind of let open the floor for students to ask questions, I kind of wanted to talk about just independent animation in general, just because I think that's a huge topic right now, especially with senior students. In my experience, there's a lot of like people right now who are about to graduate that feel kind of let down by the industry as a whole at the moment. And a lot of us are like kind of how do you explain it? Are kind of weighing the options here about like independent animation, doing our own thing, doing our, making our own studio per se, to continue working with each other because we feel let down by the current industry. What has been your guys' experience with like the benefits and also maybe the how you say some of the conflicts with independent animation? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, Joven, Isaac, did you want to chime in first or?
I have some things to say. If Isaac wants to go first, because we'll probably mirror what we have to say.
Now go for it.
Like I said, I've been on like so many different independent projects. Not, I didn't bring them up because I wasn't necessarily doing production, but I've done independent projects where I was a background artist. I am producing another short film that'll hopefully take more fruition in the upcoming weeks. I need to discuss that with the director. But I think independent animation is something beautiful, and I think your feelings of being let down by the industry is something pretty universal right now. And I think pursuing independent animation is a fantastic opportunity. And the problems that I've occurred, that's just occurred, and I think everyone can sort of weigh in this, Isaac and Olivia, is comes down with independent animation is funding, because it's obviously independent.
Mhm.
Um, so that sort of leads you down to a two-forked road where you can do sort of this is just something we want to do for fun and something to develop our portfolios and keep ourselves involved in this lovely like art form, or we
Mhm.
want to turn this into something that can be eventually sustainable for other freelancers and independent contractors.
Mhm.
Um, Twisty Tiger is, I think, a good example of like leaning towards that latter option. But a lot of the projects I've worked on have been the previous, where it's more so we're trying to develop our portfolios and develop our skills and keep being involved in animation. And I think that is something fantastic because I don't think I would have the career I have right now if I didn't keep myself involved with these independent projects
Mm-hmm.
because these do reflect on your resume. These do reflect on you as a professional. That it still shows you're trying to engage with this industry to the capacity that you can
Mm-hmm.
and develop your skills and better yourself as a professional. So I think absolutely, if you find the opportunity to either start it with friends or find an opportunity to work with other independent animators and other
Mm-hmm.
independent studios, that is a fantastic opportunity. It always helps.
That's great to hear. Just because, yeah, like it's so great hearing this, just because a lot of the people we bring on, and also I'd say our professors as well, are from a different era, I'd say, in the industry and don't quite know what it's like right now for young people. And it's good to hear your guys' perspective, just because a lot of times when we talk about like, oh, I want to do something independent, like you kind of get shut down by these older generations who don't quite know like where people need to find the work or to build their portfolio. So it's good to hear. And I'd love to hear like maybe someone's experience with like balancing this where you haven't quite found like the stability in a job, where you can make art or whatever you want to do, create, but also have stability and income. What is your experience between like your outside life, like maybe having a day job or whatnot, and then trying to build up your portfolio on the side, like without being paid for it per se, like on like independent art? Like, has there been struggles with that balance? I think a lot of people love to hear that just because it can be kind of like the an uncomfortable topic at times. And I'd love to hear anyone's experience.
Well, I guess I could speak on that because I rolled from like back-to-back freelance work in story and in like everything I mentioned. And then back in April of last year, I transitioned over into finance. I did learn a lot of finance while working independent. I did a lot of bookkeeping and like finding grants and everything. There's a lot to running a studio on the finance side that I was lucky enough to sort of learn and apply that to more of a corporate job. So back in April, I did transition from doing more full-time stuff back into the more finance corporate, sitting at a desk, doing whatever. But while I was there, I did have a very flexible schedule to continue working on things outside of work. I did continuously volunteer for a couple projects that are like short films that are anthologies, continuously working on that. But a lot of the time I was working in the background for Twisty Tiger. I was working on getting things prepared to continue Submersed. I was working a lot on talking with other creators in the indie sphere to see where they're at. A lot of people did at some point work in the industry, and then they're like, oh, where are the jobs at? And then they went to go work somewhere else. And we really sort of bonded over how there was just a dry period for a long time where we were just at a corporate job and doing stuff that we knew how to do. And we were supporting ourselves, but we were still like networking over the fact that we wanted to make something that was like our own thing. And we kind of felt like, oh, we are all in this together. We're all working a job that's maybe not in animation right now, but we do believe that there's a voice and a way to get back into that to create something that is really interesting and really like unique and that would speak to people. I know a lot of indie studios sort of sprouted out of there's a story we want to tell, but we're currently not really in the animation industry. We want to sort of show that we have talent, that we have like acquaintances that are all in the same boat as us, and we're all trying to push to make something bigger.
Mhm. And you'd say that camaraderie has really pushed you guys along, where you kind of are all in the same place where you feel, yeah, maybe let down, or you're not quite, you don't quite have the position you want or whatnot. And it's kind of pushed you guys to make these like to build these projects up and to make this stuff, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think Submersed, at least when I started Submersed back in 23, it actually started because we felt like we weren't giving enough leave room to actually work in SCAD's like room. Like they had rules for the
The
For the
capstones.
Yes.
capstones, right. There was a limit. It was like 3 minutes long. There was a lot of checkpoints. There was a lot of like, you can't have this, you can have that.
Mhm.
So we were like, we want to make something outside of those rules. And
Mhm.
that's where at least the story and the original development sort of started.
Mhm.
We were kind of in our first big project, we were like, how do we get funding for this? How do we actually make this more than just visual development and a script?
Mhm.
We really had to do a lot of research. We did our own Kickstarter back in 23, 24. And that's what we did. And we did notice, more projects now are leaning towards crowdfunding and really
Mhm.
preparing like an entire pitch deck to then say, hey, here's our idea. We want everybody to believe in it as well. Please
Mhm.
come and help with the Kickstarter. And I think that's another thing that we've been sort of talking about with a lot of other independent studios that we've met with. Just last month, we did meet with a lot of studio heads that like work in independent animation. We sort of networked with them, talked about their current project slates and like what their plans for the actual independent studio would be. And some of them really talked about their struggles to get things funded and like where they're at and trying to find their voice with their project. And I think it's been a really good sort of networking opportunity to talk to all these people that are all early in their projects and wanted to just get out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, what's been your experience with like pushing the exposure of your guys's projects or your studio in general, for marketing wise, to find other creatives or potential clients? What has been like the struggles, but also like the benefits of that? That makes sense, like with crowdfunding and whatnot. Like, would you say like it's a good place to, like if somebody's trying to make push their project to get funding, would you say like things like Kickstarter and stuff like that are good places to start?
Yeah, I think it's a good start. A lot of projects I know do ask for, well, at least in the animation side, I've noticed it's mostly just for production, right?
Mm,
Or it's just for like a certain part of production. So it might just be the animation, it might just be the sound, it might just
mm,
be pre-production.
mm,
It's like you need a fan base for to believe in your idea to get $70,000 to fund the whole
mm.
thing. And that certainly was the case for Submersed. I think originally we asked for like 10,000, which is
Mm,
not enough for an animation, like a full 10-minute animated film.
yeah.
Um, so that has really been like a learning curve of being like social media is key,
Yes.
networking is key, having a fan base or people that believe in your project is key. I think Isaac, you just finished up a Kickstarter, correct, for your project?
Yeah, we just wrapped like 2 weeks ago on a pretty
If
good
you want
kick.
to, yeah, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah.
Please do.
Um, yeah. It was kind of going through the same journey as Submersed, where we were focusing on just a specific part of production. So most of the Kickstarter, that funding goes directly to animation and getting that wrapped up. But the whole journey it was a roller coaster. Just going through the process of not only developing a pitch deck, understanding how we want to share with the world. Because I feel like there's a balance you need of yes, you need to pitch your show, you need to get the idea out there and get people intrigued. But at the same time, you don't want to spoil the show. Like you still want to make it and have people excited for the final product. So there's definitely a balancing act of actually creating it and how much to display. But then throughout the process, our director, Aaron Gonzalez, they hustled it was a 30-day campaign and they're just hustling the entire time. It's not like you just submit the Kickstarter and you're good to go. You just wait for the money to come in. They're posting new content every day, engaging with the audience and just yeah, just reaching out to everybody. They legit were saying like, yeah, I send 10 emails a day to 10 different people, just like, hey, here's a project I'm working on, would love your support. And it came to fruition. Like we not knocked it out of the park, but we made the campaign, and it went really successfully. And I'm very thankful for everyone that pitched in. But it took a lot of work and a lot of planning, prep, and just being consistent and dedicated and passionate about the project to just keep pushing it forward to know the worth of the project and have the courage to keep pushing for it to be made.
Mhm. So it's a bit
Yeah.
of like an algorithm game and also like pressure game where you're like pushing that out consistently and constantly to get like that benefit, would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of algorithm numbers behind it.
Mhm.
But I think just ultimately in my eyes, it is the passion behind the project and just the dedication.
Mhm.
And you want the algorithm to help push that forward rather than relying
Mhm.
on like, oh, the algorithm just wasn't in our hands this week. Oh, there's like
Yeah.
you gotta match it and just run with it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's awesome. And yeah, like Olivia said, with building a fan base, like would you say like people can read your passion though? Like they can see like your dedication come through with these things? Like if you are dedicated, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think ever since we started posting more on on our social media, I think people seem to be interested. I
Mm,
think before the relaunch, our biggest problem was like I was worried about spoiling anything for Submersed, and that
mm,
ended up being I don't post anything ever.
mm.
So like we ended up posting maybe like the crew intros and some pre-production work, and then people are like, cool. What's the story? So like since then, we've been definitely trying to show more like the behind the scenes, the here's some rough animation, here's cleanup animation, here's like four other projects we're working on and we want you to be interested in. But since we've actually started posting, I think we've gotten more like attention, we've gotten more people interested. And actually, ever since we started posting more submersed work, that's how we got our Planet Jane connection with Fables and Herringbone. They were like, oh,
Mm,
you guys animate. You guys do what we want to do, but you do it in our style that we want to do. Let's partner up. So,
mm,
like, it's, we were able to start posting more and start meeting more people. So I would
mm,
do that for both
mm.
you're like getting an audience and also once you're starting a Kickstarter to actually give a reason for people to want to donate their money to your project.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Isn't Herringbone also like founded by SCAD students, correct? Or am
I
I wrong?
don't think so, because no, I don't think she graduated from SCAD. I know she worked in the industry for a while, but
Yeah.
Meridian, but I don't think she's a SCAD grad. I could be
Okay.
wrong.
Right? Because I know I've seen some other studios or productions that are started by like SCAD students. So it's really cool to see like people who are like, I just want to keep working, with these people I've already worked with and make something cool. It's very inspiring to see. And I think it's good for people to see that, to see there's opportunities past graduation. And it's not like, even if you don't find the end goal, like there's still places to go to express your creativity, and to find work and build your portfolio. I think that's really important. And I'd love to know again before, sorry, I've been taking so long to open the floor, but the students, but also could you guys talk about possibly some opportunities with your guys's studio production house, like with like upcoming projects, whatnot, if there's anything, any people, creatives that you're looking for?
Yeah, I guess that's the question for me instead of Isaac and Jobin. Currently, we are expanding. Like I mentioned, we do have a lot of upcoming projects, and some originals we've been starting to work on. We are more on the production side, like looking for animators and building up our 2D rigging department since that is basically non-existent. But currently, once we release Submersed, we'll be like, that was our flagship. We're done. And we're ready to start another big project. But in terms of like job listings, we are trying to just more 2D rigging, 2D rig animation. Eventually, we're hoping to bring on another production assistant because we have a couple of big projects coming up.
Mhm.
But, people to help out with the growing animation advertising sector that we have, because that's the other half of our studio is like local animations for businesses, motion media, helping out Isaac because there's a lot of projects going on in the motion media department. Like we have like 20 videos sometimes in 1 month that we're working on, and I feel bad giving Isaac 15 of them. So eventually we're hoping to expand and take a little bit of work off of his plate over on that department. And then as we kind of move through the year, we might announce more projects we're working on that will need additional hands as well.
Mhm. And can people find those spot or that where can people find like your guys' availability or career page, whatnot, just to let everyone in here kind of know?
Yeah, Isaac, do you have the Isaac or Joven? I don't know why I keep calling on Isaac. Either do you guys have the link to the careers page and Instagram?
I got you. 1 second.
Okay, awesome.
Hold on.
Yeah, we have a LinkedIn that we post, updates about our projects as well as careers that we're looking at. We do have a spot on our website that Isaac just posted to submit general interest, and then once we open up to other career paths, we'll post there as well. And then we just make an announcement on our Instagram as well when we open up things and like how long you have to apply. Um, I know there's like a lot of third-party websites. We don't manage those. So if you see something on Indeed or like animationjobs.com, I don't know who posted them. I could be just like a random AI. I have no idea. So don't apply through there. I'll probably never see it. So through our website or LinkedIn.
Very good. Awesome. Well, I will open up the floor for anyone who has some questions and wants to talk with you guys. If anyone, feel free to turn on your camera, turn on your your mic, whatnot, or ask in the chat. You guys, is that go right ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for putting this together, Caitlin, and thank you to Joven, Olive, and Isaac for being here with us. I really appreciate it. I'm a third year animation and business management student with a specialty in producing right now. That's where I've found the most passion. But I wanted to ask if there is any advice that y'all wish that you had going into maybe like senior capstone projects and such like that. Just from a production standpoint for where I can maybe get ahead over the summer and whatnot.
Joven, did you want to start or?
I'm definitely thinking. For
Well, I
me,
mean, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
all right, this goes to like a broader question to, I guess, your career is everything is very project focused and the demands of each project depends upon what the goal of the project. So it's hard to determine what your production, what you should focus on, what you're trying to manage or what you're trying to coordinate until you know what you're making. So if you know you're going to be making a 2D film, I would know that I would specifically with capstone process, I would start recruiting and I would start looking to the talent that you would know would be best tailored to what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to make a 2D, 3D film, same sort of principle. Like understand what you're trying to achieve and try to recruit talent pretty early on. Your third year, yeah, this is spring quarter, right? If the process is still the same, I'd assume it's probably going to be right about now or a little bit later. You're going to start recruiting. My other less, I don't know if it's going to be super helpful, but piece of advice is it isn't quite as serious as you think it will be. And I know that sounds like really shitty to say, but I think what sort of like hindered my progress a little bit is thinking this will be like the end of the world if I don't make everything perfect. Um, it wasn't. Still try to expand your horizons and be very engaged with your projects. But don't be closed off to be very narrow-minded where has to be your way or the highway. I think a lot of production comes down to being a very sociable person and understanding the needs of your crew. Um, so be flexible, I guess, and don't, it's not the end of the world. It's never
Yeah.
that serious, I guess. I know that's like a shitty, no, nonchalant thing to say, but I think it's very.
No, I
No,
mean,
thank you.
yeah. When I did my senior year, I remember like pulling like 4 all-nighters in a row because I was helping out with animation, and I was like, if I don't finish this shot, it'll be the end of the world. But then, like, looking back on that, because I was doing retakes, I was like, okay, who does retakes in a senior animated film? I probably shouldn't have done that. But like, I think, if you are starting your junior year or like sophomore year, go and do as many films as you can so you can understand the pipeline, you can network with people, you can understand what each role on each film does. Because I didn't start like joining films until I was maybe halfway through my sophomore year. And then I was like, oh, there's a lot to going into a film. It's not just like storyboard, visual development, and then you ship it off to animators. It's like, oh, there's like cleanup, there's retake, there's people that have to make puppets if you're doing like 2D rigging, there's the rig animators. So when I got to my senior film, I was like, all right, this is the process that we need to do. These are the people we'll probably need. These are the leads we will need, and then the leads we won't need. And then like what's not important, what won't people notice that you don't have, right? So like when we got to our senior film, it was a team of 10 people and everyone was everything. So even though I was a storyboard artist, I knew I could draw, I could do cleanups. I knew how to do that. I would help out with the background layout, but I'm not really a painter, so I'd help out with compositing instead. So I would, even if you're a junior right now, learn the process, learn what is needed, what's not needed, and really start networking with people in your grade. So when you get to your senior project, you're like, oh, I know these people. I can just, start my senior project with them. And there's not just like an awkward week where you're like, hi, I've never met you. I don't know who you are. I've never been in a class with you or anything. So that's another advice of mine for at least for SCAD senior
Sort of
films.
piggybacking just like one little thing, especially what I've the 3D part of what Olive said, like there's a lot that goes into 3D. So I also want
Hmm.
to particularly, I don't know who here is in the 3D or 3D tech track. I'm sure if you're in the 3D tech track, you are screaming at the top of your lungs how important it is to understand how 3D pipelines work. If that is why I brought 3D, that in
Hmm.
very particular, 3D is incredibly important. You need to understand what you will need from a technical end to start figuring that out as soon as possible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially on like the technical side, like rigging. I don't know if the pipeline is the same, but I know in our senior year there were people learning how to do weight painting while working on our senior film, and that became very hard to do like modeling and rigging while they were also learning how to do weight painting and like surface like texturing. And it's like, okay, well, if they're learning at the same time as trying to make a final asset, that gets very hard to make
Find
your
someone who
senior
knows how to
film.
use a render farm as soon as possible. I know
Yeah,
that is like such a post-production thing, but you'll be surprised how
Yes.
quickly you need to know how to use a render farm.
yes. I don't know if it's allowed at SCAD, but Blender, don't be shy to use it. Learn
Mhm.
how to use it. It's so flexible, and that's what we've used for Submersed. Like we abandoned Maya pretty quickly, uh, and we have been only doing Blender, especially at the indie scale. Blender is the main 3D software that we have been using across here and other studios. It's free. There's a 2D aspect. You can storyboard in it. You can animate in 2D in it. You can model. You can do basically everything in it, and it's free. So
Blender is awesome. I agree.
it is.
My collab class, we've moved over to Blender as well, just for rendering. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done a lot in Blender. So if you can learn it, learn it, even if you're not in 3D. I'm a storyboard artist. I use Blender all the time for like put blocking out scenes in 3D or modeling visual development stuff like for paint overs and whatnot. It's easier to learn than Maya. Just from my opinion, I think it's easier.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, we have a couple questions in chat real quick we'll get to here. The first one, hello, how do you find your balance as a production studio between client work and in-house production?
Should I answer that, or does that feels like a me question? I don't know.
Like it's
Where
a
whoever wants to answer.
Isaac, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I got nothing to say.
A
That's a
cry.
department
That sounded like a
emoji.
cry for help.
I guess I can answer that. So I would say right now, starting out, 80% of our work has been client work. That's where we make money. That's where we have been able to actually make originals. You can't make and pay your staff without money. So that's what our motion media department is. It's been working with local clients. It's been working with local brands. It's been taking a lot of the clients that I worked with as a freelancer and bringing them over to Twisty Tiger so I can say, hey, I used to do storyboarding and graphic design, but would you like a whole team that can now animate and also do the sound? Because I have that, and they're like, sure, yeah, whatever. I mean, simplifies it for them. So I think a big part of that is like we have separate teams. Like Isaac does work on both the motion media, but he also helps out on Submersed. And it's like balancing how much each person capacity wise can do. Isaac, I know, has a limited amount of time on weekends to work on stuff. I can't just be like, all right, here's 15 videos I need you to work on plus Submerse. It's like communicating with who's available, who's on each team, and then saying, here's our workload, here's how much we can do. I don't think we can take on more contracts to really balance out what we're doing. But the biggest thing, especially since we're all remote, is communication about what everybody can actually take on realistically. Hope
That's
that answered your
great.
question.
I think we had a question also. Juliana, did you want to ask anything? I saw your hand was raised earlier, so go right ahead.
Hello, Juliana. It's very good to meet all of you. I had a question more on the producer side of things for the members here who had gotten their start as a production assistant, production coordinator. What advice would you have as you're, entering out of your as a rising senior, or perhaps going out of your senior year when you're starting to look for that internship territory? What does that pipeline kind of look like as you're moving up to be a producer? How does it, um, what's that process like as you go into production assistant, as you move on to production coordinator? There are unfortunately within the class setting not a lot of talk about producers here at SCAD when you're within your actual major specific classes. So I was wondering, as graduates from here, what did that look like for you as you graduated? What was that like as you had to start applying for these sorts of positions?
I'm not sure if Isaac, and I'm sure he probably does, but I have something very scat specific, and I'm sure you like to hear like scat input. I'm sure Isaac also has stuff to say. Um, do you have something that you want to go first,
Go
Isaac?
first. I'll follow up after.
Yeah, so for me, it comes down like we were saying earlier, like being in these like independent projects really helped a lot develop my experience as a PA specifically, understanding these pipelines and understanding how a PA should operate and how they should be available for the team really informed how I would be moving into my professional career. And it just, again, it sounds silly, but like having these experiences just on your resume, it does actually like look good to employers and to recruiters, and especially to other independent studios, because it seems like, oh, he's worked in the independent space. He has like those connections. He knows how independent like animation works or just independent work. Because I've worked on independent like commercial shoots and independent shoots in New York now, in film, like live action. But for me specifically at SCAD, doing these like sort of like independent like animation like PA jobs landed me my job, my first like full-time production assistant position at Jupiter Entertainment. And also just I'm not sure if it's a good resource now, but I can never fully criticize SCAD's career and alumni success when I got my first job through career and alumni success. Utilizing, I'm sure your professors are hammering it in. I ignored it too whenever they told me us to use CAS. I'm not sure if it's still good. I can't vouch for right now, but as of 3 years ago, them like guiding me in the process of how to interview and getting me all the way up to actually meeting the recruiter in person was an incredible resource. And especially if you're looking for as someone who wants to work in production and there isn't necessarily an animation tailored position in production available, the career and alumni success at SCAD will work with you to pivot your skills and teach you how to sell yourself so you can pivot to other industries. And I think that's something very important to understand in animation if you want to work in a professional capacity and just in entertainment, that you're eventually going to have to pivot in these skills. You did learn these things. You understand how these pipelines work. You just need to understand how to sell yourself in it. So that was sort of like my experience of SCAD and becoming a production assistant for the first time.
To kind of tie off of that on what Joven said on just being a part of production, I think having as much experience and a wide range of experience in a variety of things really helps in the production realm. Ultimately, the producer's job is to understand a production, understand how it operates, and keep everybody on track to keep production flowing. So the broader range of experience you have and knowledge um, of just productions as a whole, anything from 2D animation, 3D rigging, live action, experiential. Even if you're going into 2D production, you can still bring experience from 3D productions um, just to help navigate the whole system, especially if it's a unique project, maybe doing a hybrid project, just having that wide range um, will help you funnel into a specific setting, especially a specific production. I think on top of that, coming out of college, just staying curious and having a willingness to continue learning is essential for producers. Being in an indie scene, everything feels very tight, and I know a lot of people have worked as producers on indie projects, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I know how to produce. I can make films. It's great." But then they jump into the industry as a production assistant, and it just opens up this whole new world of working with executives, working with teams of 100 plus people, um, and budgets and hard schedules, and it's just this whole new world. So just having that mindset going into it of yes, you have your knowledge, you have your understanding of what you've learned in college and indie productions, but understanding there's this whole world out there. And it's just like, it's so cool to learn. And just having that mentality to continue learning and to continue growing in your field. I think that'll take you a long way. Just having that balance of knowledge and understanding, but also eagerness to continue growing and learning.
All right, thank you both very much.
Awesome. That was great. And then we have another question from Jess. I'll read it off here. As a soon-to-be 2D animation graduate, I'm curious about how you can curate your out-of-school portfolio when applying to indie and smaller studios. In school, we definitely learn about what large studios are looking for, but is there any specific work slash attributes you'd be looking for?
I think
I
a
feel
big
like all
thing,
three of us have at least something to say about this.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a big thing is just having the fundamentals, especially with industry jobs. It's usually you go into a specific role and that's what you're hired for and that's what you run with. With indie productions, you could be hired as a storyboard artist, and who knows where it goes from there. They're like, oh, let's bring you to animation. Let's go. So definitely have a curated portfolio, but underneath that, you want to have really strong fundamentals, a strong understanding of form, of animation principles. Yeah, just having a really solid ground that you can then build your specialty off of. So just that underlying work of making sure you have the fundamentals down tight.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty much exactly what Isaac said. Like a strong portfolio is just going to be a strong portfolio through and through, having a balanced portfolio. Something it's like it's always hard to like strike a balance of having showing that you understand the fundamentals and then narrowing your focus. So let's say like you're a viz dev artist. I'm not sure if they're still teaching it this way, but you should probably like hone in on what you like to do. For one, they'll show like you're passionate about it. But it'll also show like you have a very like strong grasp in it and you can do that really fucking well. And then you can still like pivot and show other things that sort of go off of that. But something I also wanted to mention that's like very SCAD specific with how they teach you how to sell your portfolio. Something I've noticed with indie animation versus big animation versus how SCAD teaches, nobody, and I know this is still controversial, nobody really cares in indie if you have fan art in your portfolio, especially if it's good. Um, if you have fan art in your portfolio that looks really good, it doesn't matter because we probably would just see the quality of the work first before we see the content. Um, so don't feel shy to use your own discretion if you know, oh, this is a really fantastic piece that I made, a 2D fan animation or a 2D fan animatic. but it's about this like IP. Doesn't matter if it looked fantastic and it's obviously like still not something not safe for work unless you're applying for a non-safe for work position. Um, Absolutely include it if it shows like your skills as an artist.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's how we got our 2D animation lead, Manu. I think 40% of his original reel was like cat and dog like reanimation, but it showed he could act, he had the fundamentals down, he had everything that we were looking for in a lead. I mean, he came on as a 2D animator first, and then he became the 2D animation lead. But in terms of portfolios, I'm the one that reviews a lot of them. I don't review everything for animation. I often hand that over to the leads since they have a better eye than me. But a big thing I've noticed is fundamentals, really. Like first it's like making sure you have a reel. There's a surprising amount of people that apply that don't have a reel at all. And I'm like, are you an animator? I don't know. You don't have a reel anywhere. So first have a reel somewhere on your website. But aside from that, making sure fundamentals don't include the bouncing ball, don't include the beanbag, or you know the fundamentals of like the I don't know if effects animators still do this, but like the fire on the stick waving around.
Oh yeah.
Like I have seen that so many times. I
Unless there's a
understand you can
twist
make
on it.
yeah. Or like the Mulan water throw thing in the 2D effects. Like I get it. Effects. If you have a chance, swap that out with a like a short film or your own effects animation or a study of something else. I've seen so I'm like immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a SCAD student because there's the Mulan background with the water the stone throw or like the smoke. I'm like, yep, that's a SCAD student. I know that. So just like if you have a chance, swap it out. But like in terms of real wise, I'm told like both the leads for the cleanup department and the 2D department and the effects department all sort of look for different things based on projects. From what I have talked to them about the 2D animation side, if you're doing just rough animation, it's all about staging, about acting. A big thing they looked for on Submersed was making sure you can actually have multiple characters interacting with each other? Can they like talk to each other? Are they like able to touch each other? Because some like reels is just one person in a room doing something. There's not multiple characters, there's not dialogue, there's not moving through space. They're just kind of sitting there or sitting in a chair or it's a close up. And you can't really get a good idea of can this person rotate this character around? Can this person move it through 3D space? So that's a big thing that we looked for Submersed, you know, making sure that we could entrust these people to carry these characters in a three-dimensional space. For cleanup, it's a little bit different. Our cleanup lead worked on Has-Been and Helva, so they have seen like how to do cleanup, and they can tell if this person has worked on cleanup. They know how to do shading, they know how to do color, they know how to take something that is maybe 80% done and then finish the animation and clean it up. So it really comes down to if you can do both or either or, and then making a reel based on that. There are other positions within 2D. 2D retakes is a whole other thing. 3D animation definitely is another real sort of thing that we've looked at. Make same thing applies with the 2D animation. It's not just like the bouncing ball. It's not just a simulation test. It's like I can make these characters move in 3D space. I have acting, I have dialogue, I have beyond just the 5 pieces of animation I made for intro to animation. So just really, if you have the chance, swap out the intro to animation stuff to more like I worked on the short film and here's my shot. Yeah.
It's great. Thank you guys. Off topic, but what Javon said, some of the best like 2D work I've seen has been like Warrior Cat. music videos.
Add a tier if you're applying for indie. I can't speak on professional because I haven't hired for professional in studios before, but indie, we do not care. We'll probably like it
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a dialogue piece, if it's like
If
solid, like
if it
just
looks
add it
great,
in
it
there.
looks great at the end of
Yeah,
the
or
day.
like original characters, like if you can animate that original character, put it in, and if it looks good.
Exactly. And a question here from Nico. What is your advice in starting an independent studio?
Oh, that's such a big question.
General, very, very big one.
Isaac,
I have a
you look like
small,
you want to say it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't started an animation studio, but I have an idea. I think, um, I think a lot of people tend to bite too much out of creating an independent studio. Like, oh, I'm going to create this massive studio. We're going to have so many projects. We're going to do all these cool things. Which is great. It's great to have that ambition and that dedication to want to do stuff like that. But just having a realistic mindset of what can we do? What can we do in this moment? So I think before starting an independent studio, you should create an independent project. Just one single project, one standalone piece of media, just to not only test yourself, but make sure you have the understanding of what really goes into a project. I think especially coming out of university, within university, you have professors, you have all the equipment you need, all the software you need. So coming out of that and just like really settling down, like, okay, what do I have? What skills do I have? What resources do I have? And what kind of project can I create out of that? And based on how that goes, you can sort of guide yourself from there, like, okay, what kind of studio can I make from this? I learned maybe from that project I did, I learned I have really good 2D animation, but my compositing isn't quite there. So going into bigger projects, into making a studio, how can I outsource my animation to compositing houses? And just really having a grounded project to really understand where you're at, not only in your own skills, but your understanding of animation, to help guide you into creating a studio.
I have something to add to that, Isaac. I've been a part of, like I said, I've had a very, just I didn't advertise as much. I've been a part of like a lot of freelance projects and a lot of like want to be self-started, like independent studios, and they have a lot of passion. But I think what ends up like being make or break for these like independent studios is like taking an internal inventory on yourself and understanding what your skills are as both an artist, as a professional, and as a person understanding, are you a sociable person? Are you able to recruit people naturally and sort of like do the hard sell? Like, are you willing to hop on an independent studio where you may or may not get paid for a very, very long time? That's a hard sell to a lot of people, especially artists. Um, so not being able to take an inventory on whether or not they have all of those like check marks ends up setting up the studio for not necessarily success in the future. So like if you know you're a very, very, very strong visual development artist, but you don't have great ideas, fantastic. That's not a problem. Understand that that's a shortcoming within yourself and being able to reach out to a friend or another like person you worked on a project like, hey, I don't have great ideas. Do you want to collaborate? Like popping up Isaac said, like start with a small project first. And then that passion will just like sort of ignite itself and like keep what it's you want going. And eventually it will sort of develop into a studio because like you'll just constantly be creating and it'll get to the point where it'll just snowball and like, okay, let's form something from that.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I mean, when we set out for Submersed, that was our first project, still is our flagship project. We made our scope huge, make it smaller. Ours was a hybrid 6-minute film between 2D and 3D animation stylized. Too big. That's a huge first project. And it's evolved to like 10 minutes now, and it's like hyper stylized. So your first project should probably be smaller in scope and with abilities that you have. So you're not like, here's an 85-person team as your first project. It should be like, I am a good storyboard artist and character designer, and I can also do backgrounds. That's what I can do. I have some friends that know how to do like rough animation, and now I'm going to look for people that can do cleanup animation. I'm going to network with people that are going to do like the sound design or the music, or I know somebody that does music or sound effects. Like, take like Isaac and Joven said, figure out what you can do, like what the scope is going to be. If it sounds like a huge project, scale it down. You want your first project to really test both the limits of your team, of what you can deliver, and then also giving yourself practice. Like, how would you market your film? How are you going to post it on social media? Where are you going to post it? Figure out how you work on a team and who would be good as a lead, and then snowball in terms of scope from there. I know that the best thing I could really recommend is start on a short film, then a longer short film, then a longer short film before you go into I have a 5 season anime series I want to make. Because that's a lot of money. And 22 minutes of animation will take a lot of time and money. So start small, then you can sort of roll from there. Um, if you're interested about the more financy side of animation, I can kind of talk about that, but that's in terms of my perspective on the art side and like leadership sort of side of things.
Can I ask a follow-up question about the scope creep stuff that you mentioned?
Mhm.
I know like I'm currently doing production work for my first 3D project, and that's definitely a thing that like the professors emphasize for how much we have to build in for like once you add in character acting, how much that's going to push past the original animatic and how much we had set as time aside for. But Isaac, I know that you'd mentioned Swaybox Studios and the motion media side of things, and I'm not as familiar with stop motion pipelines. Is there still as much, or like, I guess, what does scope creep look like in those spaces as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I only just started at Swaybox, so I can't really say deep into what the studio, how they process scope creep. My own personal understanding is just especially as the production side, we have our understandings of what the schedule will look like, where we have our ideals of like, okay, we're going to get this much done, this amount of time, this is our schedule, this is how we're moving forward. But as producers, it's our role to enforce that line, but understand that it is going to change, that this is our ideal, this isn't actuality. Um, so our primary role is just to work with the schedules and work with the crew and making those adjustments so that when something you're like, oh, this shot took 1 week instead of 3 days, how does that affect the rest of the pipeline? How can we push the other shots? Maybe we have to shorten some other shots or cut back on a couple departments. But just understanding the production as a whole so that when scope creep eventually comes in, you know how to adjust and how to navigate the production as a whole to just adjust for those tiny changes. And it'll be small things too. It'll be like maybe you're late by 1 day, but that'll affect the rest of the pipeline. So how do you shift things around? How do you manage the crew to adjust for that? So yeah, it's really just having an understanding of the production as a whole and the ultimate goal of the production. If the production is to show off your animation skills, then maybe you can cut back on backgrounds or you can cut down on compositing to make sure that your ultimate goal of animation is at its best. So yeah, just really having full understanding of production.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think another thing is as a producer is like, are you willing to let like some things expand? Like, is a shot worth taking an extra 4 days on, or is it like something nobody will notice and it's just because you've been staring at a shot for so long that you notice? So it's like, I think at least at the indie scale, I know it's completely different on the studio side, but like there's parts in a production where you look at something, it's like, is it worth investing more money to this part and spending an extra month on this part? And then in turn infecting all the other parts? Or is it something it's just like very minor and it's not worth it at all? So you got to pick your battles, I think, and that's something that I learned a lot is like not every shot deserves 5 months of work on it. Some shots are like, oh, it's short, it's 3 seconds long. Nobody's gonna notice the eyebrow being off here by 3 degrees. Like scope creep, just keep it small.
Yeah, I think especially what I've learned at Swaybox Studios is understanding the bid of every assignment. So we launch the artist. Okay, we have this prop that needs to be designed. Then we have to consider how big is this prop? How much does it play into the story? How complicated is the prop? And then we pitch that to our artists. Be like, this is what we've got. This is what we need. This is the time you have to do it. And when that time eventually runs out, we're like, oh shoot, the art director wants to do another round of revisions. Like, are we able to incorporate that into our budget, into our timeline? Or is that something we're just like, we have what we have, we'll just move forward from there? So yeah, understanding bids and just priorities is really huge.
I have one minor thing. Just something I've learned a little bit recently. In pre-production, you can build with what Isaac is saying. Sometimes you can't, but you can build buffer time into your schedule. Build like just build buffer time into your schedule. You'll love it because even if it doesn't work out, like it gives your artists more time to breathe in between projects or between deliverables. And if it doesn't work out, best case scenario, now you have more time to revise or if something happens. It's a lot harder on like what Isaac said, like if there's a budget, like you just can't squeeze it. That's where you come in to be a producer of like just thinking on your feet and how to like mitigate damage and sort of like get the solution you need. But on an indie project, you can include as much buffer time as you want on a schedule. So yeah.
Thank you all so much. I'm curious for Joven. Does that also play into when you're doing the experiential design?
Yeah, so with experiential design, that's where like I'm learning more. You can't. There is no buffer time. The because experiential has a lot of like client facing, and if the client wants something by a certain day, you do not have a choice. That it comes down to the plan B of where you as a producer need to think on your feet and how you can get a solution done with what is available, with the resources available and what is finished already or start proposing to your client because a lot of experiential is very client facing. And a lot of even independent animation is client facing too, of how you can sort of baby your client a little bit, sort of like talk them down that ledge of understanding what is deliverable with the resources that you've been provided in the time you've been provided.
Yeah, that's a huge thing is like producers, this sounds mean. It's not. It's like we're the babysitters
But
of
it's
all the artistic crews. Like the artists have such grand ideas of like, oh, we're gonna do this whole world, we're gonna do this huge thing. And we're just over here like, well, actually we only have budget for this, so like do what you can. So big thing is just being able to communicate with your artists and yeah, understanding your scope and being able to communicate with them and making sure their creative vision aligns with your timeline and budget.
Thank you again.
That's great. Yeah, definitely kill your darlings is kind of the the goal for certain projects to get things finished. And we had another question. I think we may have covered this, but I'll say it anyways. When hiring as an indie studio, do you tend to hire people in specialized roles or more generalists? We can cover it again if you guys want.
Yeah, I mean, for most of, at least for animation, right? For 2D animation, 2D roughs, cleanup, we generally are like, you do that role, but if you can do this, it would help. So if you apply for rough animation, but I see you can also do cleanup, I'll be like, all right, we're hiring you for rough, and then we'll see how you do on this shot for cleanup. And that's what a lot of our people at our studio have been doing. They come on for one project and one role, and then we're like, oh, you can also do this. We'll bring you over to this department. Like how Isaac is a production assistant, but he can also do cleanup, but he can also do motion media. So now I have them everywhere throughout the studio. But I mean, when it comes to 3D stuff, it's a little bit more complicated because there's so much that goes into making a model. I don't know how many people are like the sculptors and then the modelers and then the retop and then can also do the rigging and then the lighting. And that's just like five different people that I've just mentioned. So I would really, at least when we were hiring for Submersed, we had one person that was really good at modeling interiors. And then we had one person that was super good at modeling vehicles. And they worked together to kind of put the interior of the submersible inside the vehicle. So then we had one big model. And then we had another person come in and do all the rigging for everything because they were really good at rigging vehicles. And they worked on Desert Mayhem Overdrive, which released, I think, 2 years ago at this point. They did all the vehicle rigging for that. So we brought them on and we're like, hey, do that. But I guess for our, at least for our studio, we're just like, you have one skill, and if you have other skills, we'll see if we can fit you in. Maybe it's
They
different on others. Yeah.
just like didn't Elle start as a can't remember if Elle started from Bushitoad. If she was cleanup and now they're doing I think effects or did too. She did a bunch of different things, but she was
Yeah.
brought on for one thing. And she very
Hmm.
quickly, she's very Swiss Army knife with her skill set. Even though she specializes in something. Um, it's on indie productions is a lot easier to just have someone who's specialized and is also kind of a generalist in a different capacity, rather than
Hmm.
to onboard another person. Just have them hop on
Yeah.
to another shot or continue the shot, but on a different assignment.
Yeah, because onboarding is really hard. Like it's posting the job and then you have a lot of people that apply and you're like, are they a good fit, not just through skills, but like personality wise, you know? Can I apply them between different projects? It's a lot easier to just be like, oh, this person can animate, but they can also rough, they can also do effects. Just apply them here, there, and everywhere. And as projects come up, apply them over here back on the rough animation. And yeah, Joven, Elle did come on for rough animation, then went over to cleanup, then went over to retakes, and then went over to effects.
Yeah.
And is
So
now,
pretty much everything.
yeah, and is now helping with some like anime-esque
That
animation.
tracks for L, yeah.
Yeah. So they're working on some of the Genga for that. So they're all over the place.
And L's not like I know I'm saying a random name, but she's not like something in isolation. There's other people, and
Yeah.
they're just like sort of been moved around based off of their skill set.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's wearing many hats, really.
Hmm. Just as like we're like, oh, we have another project. You can do this. We'll bring you on over to this project.
That's great. Does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to put them in chat or turn on your mic, whatever you please.
Just a follow-up question more on the budget side of things. How does that process, start to look as we broach the topic of capstones as well as smaller scale short films as we're going into the production timeline? How does managing that budget start to look as we move further into that process from the position of production assistant or production coordinator?
Like, how do we determine how much our budget will be, or how much we're going to spend, or just production budgeting in general? Question mark.
More in a general sense. I know for us here, for certain projects for 395, as well as certain indie projects, we have had been lucky enough to have a lot of these resources available to us. But as we graduate and we go on to other indie projects, as well as into industry positions, the timeline tends to change, and the budget demands as well tend to change because we don't have these resources readily available. How do we go about deciding and having these resources available to us? How do we begin building that budget and seeing, okay, this is what we have an inventory of, this is how much it is roughly going to cost, and how we can disperse that out to a team of people from the position of a producer or someone who's a lead overseeing these things.
Hmm. Well, I can speak from the indie side, and probably Isaac and Joven can speak from the industry side, more or less. For the indie side, it's how long can the people running the project work for free? That would be me and Actor. We started Submersed unpaid because it was our project. And then we were like, what can we do? Realistically, what can we do for the pitch? What can we animate? What can we actually deliver before gathering a team? We were students at the time, so we didn't really have to worry about like a billion expenses when we started Submersed. But after graduation, that became a lot harder to say what can we do for free versus not for free, because there's rent and food and money that you need to live. So, in terms of that, it gets to a point where you're like, how much can I spend on myself to live, and how much do I need to pay other people to actually work on this project? We did a lot of research into other studios' rates for like per second of animation or per cleanup or if they charge by shots. It was a lot of talking to other studios, researching online how people came up with their budgets to pay people on the indie scale because the indie scale and the like TV scale of like budgeting is way different. You can't pay people $50 a second of animation on the indie scale because now you get to like $200,000 per episode, which isn't feasible really at the indie scale. But it mainly boils down to research, talking with a lot of people, and then also not forgetting about yourself because you're also working.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Isaac and Joven, if you have any chime from the industry side.
From the industry side, um, it's a good question. I feel like understanding a budget really just comes down to having experience on a production. It isn't really something you can just learn in a classroom. You have to have production experience and an understanding of how full productions work in order to manage budgets. I think early on, having an understanding of budget. Um, Ultimately in the industry, it's the line producer that establishes what the budget is for production and how that's divided out between each department. So personally, just coming in as a production assistant, I don't have to worry about it. It's my coordinator that manages everything. But the way it works is the coordinator is given a certain amount of man hours per week. The line producer will be like, okay, you have 20 man hours per week. Divide that out amongst your crew as you wish. Um, and it's the coordinator's role just to understand what the production needs at that moment and which artists we have available and we have the financing for to bring onto the team. A lot of just understanding what we need and what the line producer is allowing us to have, and be able to stack those things on top of each other and divvy up the resources we have to those people. So it's a lot less managing budget and more just managing hours. Um, and there's a whole that can dive deep into whether people are freelance, working hourly, or working on a salary. That's a whole nother conversation of just like understanding finance as a whole. But really going into the industry at an entry level, it's just understanding just the working hours and how much time things really take. That really establishes the budget.
Yeah. Isaac pretty much said what I was gonna say at an entry level and even upper into the mid level for television. Um, the show I was on, the season's budget was already pre-approved. Even though the show was produced internally at the studio, we were given this amount of money by the studio heads to make, and the networks that have greenlit it, to make this season. However, we were given a X amount of money to make per episode, and from that X amount per episode, we were allotted this amount for staff and crew. We were allowed some wiggle room on how we would like to divide that throughout the season, but it didn't really much change. And at an entry level, you're really more so the person observing and making sure, like at the end of each week, for me personally, I had to do a an audit of whether we are under budget or over budget. I did not make any executive decisions on whether or not we would stay over budget or under budget. I just made sure those numbers were provided to your executive producers because at the entry level, you're really just sort of providing the information to the people who will make those decisions. And in the experiential industry, it is far more client facing. They will give you sometimes no money at all, sometimes an absorbent amount of money. And they will go line by line with a fine-tooth comb once you provide a budget to them. And they will tell you what to get rid of and what to keep. And they very rarely interact with the staffing needs for that because they know staffing is one of those things where you can't really put a money on talent. But again, at an entry to mid-level range, you don't really end up handling that sort of money in the industry, at least. That's more of like as Isaac was saying, like a line producer, an executive producer, or in the case of experiential design, an account manager's job. I just provide the information and make sure everything's provided to the people who will make those decisions.
All right, thank you all. Thank you so much.
It's awesome. Let's see. Does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free. Mm,
I think we might have answered everybody's
I think,
questions.
yeah, I think we covered a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, well, there's no other questions. Do you guys have anything else you want to share with us, with the class, with us?
No, I mean, it's
Everybody.
great to meet everybody. I'm really happy to meet, people that are trying to become producers, production assistants, production coordinators. It's such an important role on every production. And I feel like if you can learn a lot about it, learn the different industries and see where you want to end up because it's not always animation. There's motion media, experimental, there's games, live action, shorts. There's like so many different industries that need a production assistant, and not all the time is it going to be like primetime feature animation. It might be like, hey, we're in the indie sphere, or like Isaac's down at Swaybox, or Jovin's up in New York. So it's just like learn where you find you want to be and like where you think you can fit in because it's all different. Like it's same skills, but it's also like working in different industries that might interest you. So
Yeah, just take
yeah.
an inventory on your heart and your skills and what you think will make you happy on a professional level. Because that's sort of like where how I ended up doing um, film and TV and experiential. I'm quite happy being surrounded by creatives. It doesn't need to be animation. Sometimes like it's important to do that, and that's where independent sort of like fills my need and want to be involved in animation. Sometimes it's more important that you have a full-time job and you get to still work with creatives versus working in an specifically animation. Sometimes you can have the best of both worlds, but it's not necessarily always going to be that way.
Did you have anything you
I
wanted to share, Isaac, or
yeah.
I was just
Yeah, I was
enjoying
like
what you
waiting
guys
for
were
your I
saying.
was waiting for your
Um,
speech. Yeah, I was like
yeah, I just say kind of roll with the punches. You never know what's gonna come. Especially like they're saying with production roles, you never know where you're gonna end up. So just be happy to be where you're at. Take jobs, whether they're big or small. I think everybody's always shooting for those big internships, which is great. But if you get a small job on an independent studio, take it. It's fun. Like meet people, have fun on the production. Enjoy whatever comes to you.
yeah, you'll never know where that job you take in junior year will like lead you to. There's people I met in junior year, and then 3 years later, I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, that's where you are. Let's hang out, let's talk, let's, work on a project together.
That's great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here and talking with us today. This has been awesome. So much, so much fun information. Let's see. Yeah, but I think it's been, yeah, an hour and a half, so I think we can end it here if that's okay with y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're good.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much again, and I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your days. And I hope the weather gets better in Wisconsin. Was that where you're from again?
Yeah, I'm up in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Nice.
It's sunny. I don't know if it like the sun is peeking through on the corner here, but
It's
we're
beautiful.
getting better weather.
That's good. I'm glad. Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, I will see you guys. Thank you guys so much
Yeah.
again. I'd love to stay in
Thank you so
contact
much.
and
Of
whatnot.
course. I
And
don't know if you
hopefully.
like you said you guys don't meet in person, but I did send business cards over
Mhm.
for our studio. I don't know if you guys have like a room that you convene in that you could hand out to
Mhm.
them. The
If you guys are comfortable with that, I'd love to like would that be okay if I like put them
Yeah,
out?
Yeah, I mean I sent like 50 cards over to you
Yeah, I
guys
was gonna
so
say
you
I
could
don't want to, yeah,
honestly,
not
you could
like
probably
be like,
leave
what
them
if
on a desk with a professor in Monty, and they'll hand them out like,
yeah. I mean,
exactly? I think
you can leave the stickers there too, but
yeah,
they
they
just might be
did they
they
did
might be
notice.
confused. They might be
yeah.
confused. They're like, what the heck are these stickers?
But
I don't
SCAD
think
students love
stickers
stickers
will ever
though.
confuse animation students at SCAD. They don't know what to do with them.
They love a sticker.
Yeah, they're kind of
Yeah.
big. I think they're like 4 inches big, so
Oh,
they
really?
might.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, they're pretty
awesome.
big. Actually,
So
wait, I
cool.
think I have them over here. I sent a
Yes.
whole collection to you. but feel
Yes.
free to pass them out as needed or leave them on a desk. Yeah, right
Right?
here. Yeah, they're
Oh,
pretty
that's so
big.
cool. Look at that. This is Bruce Crew.
Oh,
That
wait, I'm
is
over here.
awesome.
Sorry. I
Oh,
have
yo,
two
you're fine.
monitors. I have two
That's
monitors.
so
Yeah.
cool. That's freaking awesome. Those are big too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Those
we
are
got a whole
awesome.
collection of them over here.
Yo, that's so cool. Oh my
So if you're
gosh.
curious, find them at a random table at Monty, I suppose.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
up here.
That's so
And
sick.
this one is
That's
our
freaking awesome.
characters.
Right?
Heck yeah.
That's so cool. No, yeah, they got rid of
Right.
the sticker wall, unfortunately. That's sad.
No, they got rid
And
of the sticker wall.
yeah, it was like,
They get rid of the
I don't know.
box in the stairwell.
Yeah, it's like it's such a shame though, because it's like
That's
I love the
unfortunate.
sticker wall. It was like an art piece, and they're like, no, no sticker wall.
Yeah.
Oh
Well, thanks again
goodness.
for meeting with us.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you guys.